My name is Mark, and I want to tell you a story that turned my life upside down. No, it's not another tall tale about $1 million falling on your head out of nowhere or an encounter with aliens. My story is much more down to earth, but no less exciting. It all began when I married Kate. She was and is an amazing woman. Smart, beautiful, with a great sense of humor. I fell in love with her at first sight and didn't lose out. Our marriage could be called, if not perfect, then certainly very happy. But there was one thing that always bothered me. No, not her love for musicals or her habit of scattering socks all over the apartment. It was her mother, Anna. From our very first meeting, I felt something more than just affection for her. Anna was an incredibly attractive woman, though a couple of decades older than me. Her intelligence, charm, and a certain special grace could not leave one indifferent. Of course, I never let it show. I was always extremely polite and friendly, playing the role of the perfect son-in-law. But inside me, such passions were raging that it was time to write a script for a soap opera. I convinced myself that it was just a fleeting infatuation. After all, I'm not some kind of lustful male who can't control himself. I have a wife, children, obligations. A mother-in-law is taboo. You can't even think about it. But the heart, as we know, won't be ordered. And every time I met Anna, I felt like everything inside me turned upside down. Her smile, her gaze, her light touches. It all seemed to burn right through me. God, what is this? Why, of all the women in the world, did I have to fall for my mother-in-law? It's like some kind of joke, for God's sake. But jokes aside, it was getting harder and harder to keep my feelings in check, especially when Anna got too close, or when we were left alone, even if only briefly. At such moments, I would bite my tongue, afraid of blurting out something extra. I smiled like a fool and carefully averted my eyes. Anything not to give myself away, not to destroy the fragile balance that I managed to maintain. But it couldn't go on like this for long. Sooner or later, something had to happen. Some kind of sign from above, a turning point, a point of no return. And that moment came in the summer when Kate decided to visit a friend. Taking the children with her, she left for a couple of weeks, leaving me alone with work, and without knowing it herself, with a temptation that I could no longer ignore. The first days without Kate passed calmly. I immersed myself in work, trying not to think about my loneliness. Well, and about my mother-in-law, what can I say? Fortunately, the project was serious and required complete concentration. But in the evenings, left alone with myself, I couldn't get my mind off Anna. What was she doing now? Was she thinking about me? Did she miss me? Pshaw, what nonsense. Misses me? Yeah, right. At most, she'll remember a couple of times what a caring husband her daughter has, while watching her favorite melodramas and sipping chamomile tea. These thoughts made me feel depressed. I suddenly realized how used I had become to Kate's presence, to her voice, her laughter, even her eternally cold feet in bed. The house seemed too big and empty without her. Therefore, when one evening Anna's call came, I almost jumped with surprise and joy. I grabbed the receiver without looking at the number and heard her soft voice. "Mark, hi! How are you doing there without Kate?" Her tone was warm and slightly worried. "Oh, hi, Anna. Yes, everything's fine. Working a little." I tried to speak casually, although my heart was pounding like crazy. "Be careful not to overwork yourself there. You need to eat well. I know how you can wear yourself out," Anna said reproachfully. "Listen, why don't I drop by tomorrow and bring you some home-cooked food? I just cooked up a whole bunch." My mouth instantly went dry. Anna? Here? Alone with me? That's a recipe for disaster. But I couldn't refuse. First, I didn't want to offend Anna. Second, the prospect of spending an evening with her was too tempting, even despite all the risks. "That would be great, Anna. Thanks for caring," I squeezed out, mentally kicking myself. "That's great then. See you tomorrow, Mark. Don't be bored there." Anna said goodbye cheerfully and hung up, and I was left standing, staring at the phone and feeling everything inside me trembling with anticipation, and at the same time with fear. What if I can't restrain myself? What if I do something foolish that I will regret for the rest of my life? But there was no turning back. Tomorrow evening promised to be a turning point in my fate. It only remained to gather my courage and face it head on. The next day I was on pins and needles. I couldn't concentrate on anything, constantly glancing at the clock. Time seemed to drag on unbearably slowly, mocking me. By evening I had worked myself up into a complete nervous breakdown. I changed clothes 5 times, not knowing what to choose. One shirt seemed too formal, the jeans too sloppy. In the end, I spat and settled on a simple t-shirt and sweatpants. After all, this is not a date, right? This thought made me feel a pang inside. What if... No, that's crazy. Anna just cares in a familial way, nothing more. No need to make hasty assumptions here. At exactly 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I started, smoothed my hair, and went to open it. Anna stood on the threshold, beautiful, smiling, with a large bag in her hands. "Hi again, and here I am, with treats." She winked slyly and went inside. She gave off a light scent of perfume and home baking. My mouth was watering, both from the smell and from the sight of Anna herself. Today she looked especially attractive in a simple but elegant dress. "Wow, looks like you've cooked for a month in advance," I whistled, looking at the containers Anna was putting out on the kitchen table. "What did you think? I know what a gourmet you are," she grinned. "Everything has to be first class so my son-in-law doesn't get skinny." I just smiled wryly in response. If only she knew what was really twisting my stomach. I doubt she would continue to joke like that. We began to set the table, chatting about this and that. Anna asked about my work, told me the latest news. Everything was so cozy and homey that I gradually relaxed. During dinner, we continued to talk, sipping wine. Anna's cheeks were flushed, her eyes sparkled. She was reminiscing about her youth, telling funny stories from her life. I listened, laughed, and felt my heart filling with warmth. And then David looked at me and said, "You in that dress are like Audrey Hepburn, only 1,000,000 times more beautiful." Can you imagine? Anna smiled dreamily, clearly immersed in memories of her late husband. But suddenly her face became sad, and tears appeared in her eyes. She fell silent, crumpling a napkin in her hands. "I'm sorry. I'm falling apart here," she muttered in a choked voice. "It's silly. It's been so many years, but it still hurts to remember." My heart ached. I couldn't bear to see Anna upset. I don't know how, but the next moment I was already sitting next to her and hugging her shoulders. "Hey, it's okay. It's normal to be sad for those you love," I said softly, stroking her back. Anna raised her eyes to me, full of tears and gratitude. Our faces were so close that I could see every vein in her iris. Time seemed to stand still. "Mark, you've always been so sensitive, so caring," she whispered, not taking her eyes off me. "You can't even imagine how much it means to me." The words that I had held back for so long suddenly spilled out on their own. "Anna, I've long felt for you. Something more than I should." That's it. The point of no return has been passed. Now she will recoil in indignation, slap me in the face. She will run out of the house, slamming the door. And she will be right. But Anna didn't move. She just looked at me for a long time, probingly. And then suddenly, she reached out and touched my cheek with her fingertips. My breath caught. Her touch was so gentle, so tender, not at all like what I expected. "I guessed it, Mark. I saw the way you look at me," she said quietly, continuing to stroke my face. "And I was afraid to admit to myself that I feel the same way about you." These words sounded like a thunderclap on a clear day. Could it be this is not a dream? Could Anna really... Everything else happened by itself. We reached for each other at the same time like two oppositely charged particles. Our lips met in a kiss, at first timid, almost weightless, and then bolder, hotter, more insistent. I held Anna close, pressing her to me, burying my fingers in her hair. I kissed her as if I wanted to forever imprint her taste in my memory. She responded with no less fervor, moaning and arching in my arms. I don't know how we ended up in the bedroom. Everything was happening as if in a fog, purely on instinct. Clothes flew to the floor, baring heated skin. We couldn't tear ourselves away from each other, entwining in an embrace, caressing, exploring every inch of our bodies. And then there was a flash, blinding, stunning, making you forget about everything in the world. We made love so selflessly, as if it was our last time, or the very first, the most important. Anna's name escaped from my lips at the moment of the highest pleasure. Her cry echoed in my soul. We froze, breathing heavily and looking into each other's eyes. At that moment, we were not just lovers. We were one, two halves that had finally found each other. Only after some time did reality begin to seep into our consciousness, bringing with it the realization of what had happened. And fear. What now? How to deal with this burden, with this terrible, beautiful secret? We lay in silence, each thinking our own thoughts. I felt my heart pounding somewhere in my throat. Lord, what have I done? Betrayed my wife, destroyed my family. And for what? A moment of weakness? But looking at Anna so lost and subdued, I suddenly realized it was worth it. Every moment, every breath. It may be wrong, it may be immoral, but I didn't regret anything. Mark, what do we do now? Anna asked quietly, peering into my face. Her eyes were filled with tenderness mixed with anxiety. I swallowed and stroked her cheek. How I wanted to say, let's run away, start all over again, just you and me against the whole world. But I couldn't. Too much was at stake. I don't know, honey. I really don't know, I sighed. But one thing I can say for sure, I don't regret anything, and I will never regret it. Anna smiled sadly and nodded. She seemed to understand. We had no other choice, only to keep our secret, carefully and reverently, like the greatest treasure. We lay in each other's arms for a long time, afraid to let go, as if it could prolong the magic of the moment, postpone the inevitable. But sooner or later we had to get up, get dressed, return to the real world, where we are just relatives, son-in-law and mother-in-law, nothing more. And what happened between us is just a sweet dream that will dissipate with the first rays of the sun. But I knew, even years later, the memory of that night would warm my soul. Because Anna gave me something that many can only dream of, real, all-consuming love. And even if we are not destined to be together, I will always keep our secret until my last breath, as a reminder that miracles do happen, even if not always in the form we expect. The morning brought with it an oppressive hangover, and it wasn't about the wine. It had already left no trace in my head. Much worse was the realization of what Anna and I had done. In the light of day, our night of passion seemed unreal, as if I had seen a dream that was too bright, too realistic. Only the traces of kisses and the slight pain in my body reminded me that it was all real. Anna left early, saying almost nothing in farewell. She only gave me a long, sad look before disappearing behind the door. And I understood her. Words were superfluous. We both knew that what happened must not be repeated. But it didn't make it any easier. Everything inside me was tearing, screaming, begging to catch up with her, to enfold her in my arms, to kiss her until I was dizzy, to forget everything and run away wherever my eyes looked. But I couldn't. I had no right. We had families, obligations, and destroying them because of a fleeting flash of passion would be the height of selfishness. So I stayed standing in the middle of the kitchen, lost, devastated, with a broken heart and a sense of guilt the size of the Grand Canyon. The next days turned into torture for me. I went to work, smiled at my colleagues. In the evenings I walked in the park, trying to distract myself somehow. But my thoughts invariably returned to Anna. How was she doing? Was she also tormented by pangs of conscience? Did she remember our kiss, our caresses? Or had she already put it out of her mind, resigned to the inevitable? These questions made me feel even worse. I was in torment, unable to find a place for myself. Even my favorite hobby, building ships in bottles, brought no comfort. A couple of times I was tempted to call Anna, at least just to hear her voice, but at the last moment I chickened out and hung up. What would we talk about? How to pretend that nothing had happened? The only bright spot was the calls from Kate. She told me how much fun she was having with her friend. She joked, laughed, shared her plans for the future, and I listened and felt my heart torn with shame. God, why is everything so complicated? Why can't you love two women at the same time without hurting anyone? Yeah, I guess that's the way this world works. You have to pay for everything good. The days dragged on excruciatingly slowly. I was already beginning to get used to my split state. I learned to smile, to pretend that everything was fine. Although inside there was only a ringing emptiness, and only at night, left alone with myself, I could give free rein to my feelings. I remembered Anna, her touch, her breath on my skin, and I couldn't hold back my tears, from pain, from longing, from hopelessness. But what's the use of shedding tears? I had to somehow live on, to come to terms with the impossibility of our love, and to pray that no one would find out about our secret, for the consequences could be catastrophic. For everyone, For me, for Anna, for our families, and I could not allow the truth to come out. So when Kate returned, I greeted her with open arms. I hugged her, kissed her, told her how much I missed her, and I wasn't lying for a single word. It's just that my love for her was different now. Not as bright, sparkling as my love for Anna, but calmer, more familiar, native. But can you ever come to terms with the fact that someone else has settled in your heart? Can you pretend that everything is the same when a hurricane rages inside? I didn't know the answers to these questions. I could only hope that time would heal the wounds, dull the pain, smooth out the memories, and one day I would be able to breathe deeply without feeling the suffocating burden of our secret. And in the meantime, I had to learn to live anew, day by day, step by step, with a smile on my face and a crack in my soul. Such was my new reality, cruel, unfair, but the only one possible. The next months blurred into one endless Groundhog Day for me. Work, home, family concerns. Everything went on as usual. Only now I no longer felt the former joy of the mundane. Anna and I carefully avoided each other. We met only at family celebrations and then only in passing. We exchanged polite smiles and routine phrases, as if there had never been that scorching night between us. But I knew nothing was forgotten. By the way her cheeks flushed when we met, by the way her breath caught when I accidentally touched her hand, by the hidden sadness in her eyes when we were left alone even for a moment. We both tried to keep our distance, extinguishing the sparks before the flame ignited, because we knew that a second time we would not resist. We would burn to ashes, incinerating everything around us. Kate, of course, noticed my condition. She asked if everything was all right. She hugged me at night, kissed me, whispered words of love. And I buried my face in her shoulder and said nothing, struggling with the rising tears. God, why did you send me this trial? What have I done wrong to be torn between duty and desire, between familiar happiness and mind-numbing, all-consuming passion? Sometimes I wanted to confess everything, to fall on my knees before Kate, to pour out my soul, to beg for forgiveness, to swear that I would never betray her again. But I couldn't. I was too afraid of the consequences. I cherished our family too much, even if it was now tinged with the bitterness of deception. So I continued to play my role, a loving husband, a caring father, and only at night, left alone with the ghosts of the past, did I give vent to tears and despair. How many times I was tempted to call Anna, to hear her voice, to say how much I missed her, to confess that I loved her no matter what. But each time I stopped myself, realizing that I couldn't. I would only make things worse, for her and for myself. Months passed. Gradually, the sharpness of feelings dulled. Longing gave way to a dull, nagging pain, but it didn't get any easier. I learned to live with the burden of our secret. I learned to smile through the pain, to pretend that everything was fine. I almost convinced myself that I could forget, let go, bury the past. But every time I accidentally met Anna's gaze, everything came back. A whirlwind of emotions, an avalanche of memories, and a painful tugging feeling in the pit of my stomach, longing for what could have been. And then one day, the thing I feared most happened. The thing that destroyed the fragile balance I had so painstakingly built up over these months. Anna and I ran into each other at the supermarket door. She was going out, I was going in. For a moment we froze, looking into each other's eyes. So much was left unsaid in her gaze, so much hidden pain, that it took my breath away. "Hi, Mark," she said quietly, trying to smile, but it was just a pathetic grimace. "Hello, Anna," I answered just as quietly, struggling with the urge to take her in my arms, to comfort her, to protect her from the whole world, from myself. We were silent, not knowing what to say. What can you even talk about in a situation like this? About the weather? About the latest news? "Well, I'll be going. Things to do," Anna finally forced out, and skirting me almost ran to the car, and I just stood there, lost, crushed, with a keen sense of déjà vu. After all, this was exactly how she had run away from me then, after our only night together. Apparently nothing had changed. We were still strangers, bound by one shameful secret, and doomed to carry this burden to the end of our days. I returned home as if in a fog. On autopilot I had dinner, read a fairy tale to the children. I kissed the already sleepy Kate and went into the study, citing urgent work. But in reality, I just ran away. From reality, from myself, to be alone with my hopeless, unbearable longing. God, why is it like this? Why can't we be together if we love each other? Why do we have to hide, lie, pretend? Isn't this the worse punishment than open scandal and condemnation? These thoughts made me want to howl like a wounded animal that has nowhere to run from the pain, because the pain was inside, ingrained in my very soul. I wept quietly, my face buried in my hands, choking on silent sobs, afraid to wake up the household, and feeling with each tear the remnants of my strength flowing out of me. The desire to fight, to resist fate. Maybe to hell with this fight? Maybe I should forget everything and rush to Anna. Confess my feelings, beg for a second chance. What if she dreams about it too, just doesn't dare to take the first step? But common sense immediately rejected these insane impulses. No, Mark, that's enough. You've already made a mess. Now it's time to deal with it. Do you think abandoning your family is a way out? Do you think Anna will throw herself into your arms and you will be happy? No. You will destroy the lives of your loved ones. Everyone will be hurt, both Kate and the children. Your relationship with Anna will be poisoned by guilt and the bitterness of loss. It's not worth it. As much as I hated this sober inner voice, it was right. Anna and I had missed our chance. Maybe if we had met earlier, before my wedding to Kate. But now it was too late to guess. Our train had left. All that remained was to watch it leave and be content with memories, bitter, searing, but so sweet. Tears gradually dried up. I got up and on stiff legs made my way to the bathroom. For a long time I washed with cold water, trying to erase the traces of my weakness. And then I looked in the mirror and grinned bitterly. A stranger was looking at me, pale, haggard, with eyes swollen from tears, a shadow of my former self, confident and cheerful. Now there was only endless weariness in my gaze, from lies, pretense, fighting with myself. But there was no choice. I had driven myself into this trap, and I had to bear the consequences myself, for Kate, for the children, and for Anna, so that the ghosts of the past would not disturb her. So I squared my shoulders and left the bathroom, with a firm intention to start a new day, with a smile on my face and a crack in my soul, and let everything bleed and fester inside. I will cope. Just because I have to. Such is the price of my forbidden happiness, and I am ready to pay it to the last cent. Years passed. Life gradually returned to its usual course: work, family, weekdays, and holidays. I learned to find joy in simple things, in the smiles of children, in the embraces of my wife, in quiet family evenings and noisy feasts. Anna and I no longer stayed alone. We even tried not to meet each other's eyes unnecessarily, as if we were afraid that if we let our guard down, everything would come back. Passion, pain, and unquenchable thirst for each other. Sometimes I caught her long, thoughtful gaze on me. At such moments, my heart would freeze and then begin to beat wildly. I wanted to go to her, to hug her, to whisper words of comfort in her ear, but I didn't dare. Too much was at stake, especially now that the children had grown up and begun to understand more than it seemed. The slightest hint of trouble, and our family would collapse like a house of cards. So I just nodded to Anna and looked away. I pretended to be engrossed in conversation or work, and inside everything writhed with pain and desire. That's how I lived, on two fronts. By day, an exemplary family man; by night, a lover torn by contradictions, balancing on the edge, afraid to stumble and shatter to pieces. There were moments when it became completely unbearable, when I wanted to forget everything and rush to Anna, to open my soul to her, to beg her to start over with a clean slate, just the two of us against the whole world. But time after time I stopped myself, reminded myself that this was just a selfish impulse, that you can't build your happiness on the misfortune of others. So I continued to bear my cross, day after day, year after year, with a wedding ring on my finger and a hoop around my heart. And only occasionally, in moments of weakness, did I take out our only night from the attic of my memory. I picked through the memories like beads, kiss by kiss, sigh by sigh. Did I regret what happened? Not for a single second. Yes, the consequences were heavy. The burden of secrecy at times seemed unbearable, but that flash of passion, that unity of souls, it was worth it. Anna showed me what true, all-consuming love is, a love that is above duty and morality, that sweeps away all obstacles and leaves behind only scorched earth. We were not meant to be together, but I will always be grateful to her for this experience, for awakening my heart, breathing life into it. Who knows? Maybe in another universe things turned out differently for us. Maybe there we found the courage to go against fate and stay together. I often imagined what our life might look like. Lazy mornings filled with tenderness and laughter, long conversations about everything in the world, trips to faraway lands that Anna had always dreamed of visiting. But these were just dreams, sweet, bitter, ghostly, and in reality only stolen glances and longing for what might have been awaited us. And yet I did not regret anything, because I knew that our story, albeit short, was real, not made up, not sucked out of thin air. We loved, strongly, desperately, recklessly, and even if we are not destined to live this love to the end, I will always keep it in my heart, as a reminder that miracles happen, that behind the gray everyday life there can be a storm of passions, and that sometimes it's worth risking everything to know the taste of true happiness, even if only for a short while. Now, in the twilight of my years, I think more and more about Anna, about that unique spark that flared between us, and about how it forever changed my life. We haven't seen each other for a long time, ever since she moved to another state. Only occasionally did we exchange short calls on holidays. A voice on the phone, that's all I had left. But even through the static and distance, I felt that our connection had not been broken. It was still there, invisible but strong, binding us with an invisible thread through the years and miles. Kate doesn't suspect anything. To her, I am still the same loving husband I have always been. A little faded, tired of life, but still reliable and faithful. And that's good. I don't want her to suffer. I don't want to darken our relationship, already fragile and vulnerable. Let everything remain as it is. My secret, my pain, only mine. There's no need to share them with loved ones. This is my cross, my penance for a moment of forbidden pleasure. I will finish writing these lines and hide the notebook away, so that no one accidentally stumbles upon it, reads what is not meant for prying eyes. My confession, bitter and sweet at the same time. But even in my darkest hour, when loneliness and longing become completely unbearable, I will take it out. I will flip through the pages covered in my scrawling handwriting, inhale the scent of paper and ink, and for a moment, just for a moment, I will be transported to the past, to where Anna and I were young, reckless, and madly in love, where no one and nothing existed but the two of us. And even if that moment lasted only one night, I will be endlessly grateful to fate for it, for giving me the brightest, most real feeling in my life. Love that knows no bounds, a love over which neither time nor distance has power. That's what I will remember in my twilight years. That's what will warm my lonely heart and make my lips stretch into a sad but bright smile. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.